Well, good morning. We have the pleasure today to have Starts with Safety here at Little Giant Ladder Systems. We're grateful that you could join us today. My name is Joy Glad. I am the Director of Programs from the Utah Safety Council, and I'm just going to go over a few little items. So mark your calendars for this. On March 17th, the Utah Safety Council office will be closing at noon. If you need any training classes or any supplies, please make sure you get that in, preferably by this Friday, so that we can get it to you in a timely fashion. On April 28th and 29th, we will be attending the Zero Fatalities Safety Summit. We will have a booth there. They will have classes on pedestrians, bike safety, transportation, trucking, enforcement, classes like that. On October 3rd, we are scheduled to have our annual meeting. It will be at the Weber campus in Layton, so look for that information coming out. We will also be looking at setting out awards nominations for everybody. Last year, we had 128 nominations. One of those were women. So, that woman did win. We would like to see you put more women in for winning these awards. We know they're in your life, we know that they're doing a good job, so let's make them part of what we're rewarding and what we're supporting in our world. Speaking of women, we're going to move into Women in Safety. The mission of Women in Safety is to empower women in safety roles through recognition, elevation, and professional development. We have a couple events coming up. You'll see a QR code on the bottom that you can click on that QR code. In April, we're looking at professional development and success. In June, it's community involvement and how we can help support others around us. August, we're looking at some sort of resources that we can be using. October, we will be at the State Safety and Industrial Hygiene Conference that's up at the University of Utah. So we'll have an event there. And don't forget, December, we have our WISH Award, where we have women in safety and health who go above and beyond. We want to make sure that they are shown appreciation for what we are working forward.
Hey everyone, I am Yvette Stephanie with the Utah Safety Council, and I am the Traffic Program Manager. I did want to touch base today as part of this webinar. We always want to include membership. We always want to give you a little bit of information or a reminder of what your membership includes. You know, one of the coolest things of being a member is streaming safety videos on our website. You can log in, or if you don't have a login that you know of, reach out to us and we'll get you going. We'll get you signed in, give you some videos to look at and see which one you prefer or what you don't want. Free safety courses. You guys can sign up for free safety courses throughout the year or as you go throughout the month. They do pop up every now and then, but mostly we have them scheduled way ahead of time. Annual safety awards, Joy did mention that briefly. We do have super amazing speakers at this event, and we do have a lot of people that do participate and put in their applications for nominations. So please feel free to reach out for any questions about your membership, or if you want to become a member. If you are not a member, reach out. It's super cool, really good perks to be a member. And lastly, discounts on our products and most of our trainings. I am going to invite Karen Kitiona, who will now talk about our speaker.
Good morning, everyone. Our focus today is on ladder safety for the month of March, an essential topic for preventing workplace injuries and ensuring safe practices in a variety of environments. We are honored to have Little Giant Ladder Systems as our guest speaker for this event. Little Giant has been a leader in ladder innovation and safety, continuously working to prevent injuries and save lives. Before we begin, a quick reminder, if you have any questions during the session, please drop them in the chat and we will make sure to address them during our Q&A portion at the end. Today, we are honored to welcome Kenyon Allen, who has been with Little Giant Ladders since 1995. Rather than introducing him myself, I'd like to share his own words about his journey and expertise. Kenyon Allen has worn many hats at Little Giant Ladders since 1995. ranging from shipping and receiving to sales, when much of the company's sales and marketing were driven by toe-to-toe events at home and trade shows. In 2010, Kenyon was asked to lead the event sales team as it expanded, with 30 sales reps attending roughly 500 events per year. And as commerce embraced technology, Little Giant Ladders built interactive studios as their Utah headquarters in 2020, where Kenyon now leads a team running Little Giant Live. Presenting from these studios, Little Giant has been able to share its message of innovation and safety with partners in 43 countries worldwide. Today, we are especially honored to be broadcasting live from Little Giant Studios, an incredible opportunity to see firsthand how they are leading the way in ladder safety and advancements. A big thank you to Little Giant for hosting us. Please join me in welcoming Kenyon Allen.
Oh, geez. Fantastic. Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to present to the Utah Safety Council. Let me just also introduce Paxton. You saw during the introduction that my coworker out here is a big part of what we do here at Little Giant. During our live sessions like this, you can see that Paxton runs the boards. He's back there in the studio and in his office, and so he really makes this studio immersive. If you're not familiar, Little Giant, of course, is a ladder manufacturer here in Utah. Just down the freeway from you or up the freeway from where you are. We're based in Springville, about 45 minutes south of Salt Lake City. And here we are, Springville, Utah. We're very proud. Now, you see these mountains every day. When I show this B-roll to a school district in Indiana, you would not believe how thrilled they are. They save their dollars. They come out and ski our mountains and visit our national parks. We are very blessed to live in Utah. Inside our building, we also built these beautiful studios. A huge asset to what Little Giant has done over the last 5 years is building these studios. And as Karen said during the introduction, we've been able to broadcast this message of safety, preventing injuries and saving lives to 43 countries outside of the U.S. Again, we appreciate the infrastructure that Little Giant has created. So safety not only through design of better products, but safety through the education of school districts and universities and hospitals, or maybe your corporation. So if you are a member of Utah Safety Council, I just throw that out as an invitation that if you would like further training for your people, you can just reach out to me here and we can book that for you and your organization through a Teams call, very live. So let's just jump into the reason that we're together is talk about ladder safety, shall we? March being National Ladder Safety Month, and as Karen said, since we have a footprint throughout the entire world, we refer to it as International Ladder Safety Month. But the ALI, the American Ladder Institute, has called March National Ladder Safety Month for the last 9 years. And then just a reminder that the first week of May is also the OSHA Stand Down. That's an important initiative as well. So if you want to have a toolbox talk or a safety moment, if Little Giant can be part of that during the first week of May, that's always a good time of year to talk about working at heights. Okay, let's talk about ladders. Ladders often we take advantage, or we take them for granted is the word I want to say. The rhetorical question that I often ask is, how old were you when you first climbed a ladder? Probably 3 years old. You could have been 2.5. And since we've been climbing ladders almost our entire life, people think ladders are pretty simple. Do people get ladders wrong? They do. How many electricians does it take to screw in a light bulb? Have you ever seen this one? And by the way these gentlemen are dressed, we can assume that they have the right ladder for the job, right? If they have the PPE, if they have the right footwear, do you think that they have an 8-foot step ladder somewhere, back on the truck, back at the shop? They do, right? I would assume that they have the right ladder. So they've chosen not to use it, and that's a big part of ladder safety. So those of you that are taking notes, or those that are safety-minded, it's not just what you know. We can know the right thing, but to choose to do the right thing, common knowledge, isn't always common practice. And OSHA keeps track of the number of violations that they write. This might surprise you. If we looked at the top 10 categories in which OSHA writes violations, 4 of those categories are related to working at heights. Ladders used to be number 5 just a few years ago. Now, number 3. And more important than the violations are the people that are affected. Look at the fatality rate according to OSHA. Now, you know that fatality is just a nice name for saying death. And we look at number 1, and then look at something dangerous like number 3. And I want that statistic to surprise you. That you and I are 5 times more likely to be killed working at heights than we are by almost anything else. And I think it's because we've been using ladders almost our entire lives, and so it's easy to become complacent. It's easy to become lazy. We think of ladders as a simple tool. How hard can it be? When something is perceived to be dangerous, right? We know when to lock out and tag out, take precautions when something is perceived to be dangerous. So what we want to teach you today, if you learn anything, it's that ladders will continue to be some of the most dangerous equipment that you use unless you are educated, unless you make choices, unless you adopt better equipment. Okay, when we teach ladder safety, it comes down to 4 pillars or chapters. Chapter headings are that we're choosing the right ladder for the job, of course, inspection, why and how ladders are inspected, that we're setting ladders in a safe environment, and that we are climbing ladders safely. So here we go. Paxton, chapter number 1, choosing the right ladder for the job. And it should go without saying that when you're choosing the right ladder, that we want you to choose a ladder. It gets tempting, doesn't it? I think we've all been there, done that. Maybe not this extreme, but we stand on things that are closer, happen to be in the same room. Now, in a professional environment, it could be the tongs of a forklift. It could be bundles of material. It could be a desk or a chair. At home, it could be 5-gallon buckets or combinations of those things. So let's at least start with a ladder. When you're choosing the correct ladder, the right ladder would be the right material, because the material can make a difference. A metal ladder is fine if you're painting inside a home. If you're around any kind of electrical application, make sure you're choosing a material that's non-conductive. And wooden ladders are a little bit old school, right? Especially in Utah, ladders that are stored outdoors. Wood doesn't last quite as long as fiberglass. So choose a material that's appropriate for the work that you're doing. Choose the correct weight rating. Weight ratings start at 200 pounds. That is pretty light duty, right? So choose a material that's appropriate, or choose a weight rating that's also appropriate for the work that you're doing. If you're in a professional environment and your employees have steel-toed boots and PPE, and if I'm in daybreak in March and I'm working outdoors, I probably have 3-4 layers of clothing. So it's every stitch of clothing, any tool, any piece of equipment that's on the ladder, and it's also every one. Ladders are a communal tool. They might get shared, and we have coworkers that might be larger than you are. So make sure that you are thinking about them as well. Choose those higher weight ratings. Everybody can be safe. Also choose the right style, the right kind of ladder. Step ladders are to be used as step ladders and nothing else, and extension ladders to be used as extension ladders, multi-purpose ladders. You might know that Little Giant got its start, and you might have one in your garage. We do those in both fiberglass and aluminum. When we say choose the right type of ladder, let's check in with OSHA. OSHA says that ladders are only to be used, and anytime OSHA uses the word only, we should probably pay attention, right? Ladders are to be used only for the purposes for which they were designed. Now, that's a lot of legal language. What does that mean? It means that we don't make shift solutions. It's not okay to take a step ladder, close it, and lean it against something and make a makeshift extension ladder, right? That is an OSHA violation because that ladder was not designed for that purpose. That's why there's innovation in the market, right? That's why ladder companies are designing ladders to close and lock and lean. And with a skid-resistant pad, we can do that safely and also rotate. Because how many of our jobs are in corners or on corners, against machines or against studs? So there's safety because of the design. And that's the difference, right? Safety through design. And then also just a reminder that step ladders should be used the right way, but extension ladders should also be used the right way, right? We don't take corners, we don't cut corners when it comes to extension ladders. Can you imagine? Right? You choose the 3 people that you trust. Yeah, that's. Also, don't take extension ladders and separate them. That's also an OSHA violation. Sections being separated. Extension ladders were never designed to do that. Don't do that either. Choose the right size. The right size of ladder can also make a difference. When you're using a 6-foot step ladder, where are your feet? They're not at 6, they're not at 5, they're here, aren't they? If your feet are at 4, that means an average sized person has a working height of about 10, maybe 10 and a couple. So if you have an application that's 12 feet, is a 6-foot ladder the right size? No. You need to take the time, go find the 8-foot A-frame so that you're not standing on the top rung. Do not stand on the top cap. Unless your ladder is designed for that purpose, then we would just turn that into an extension ladder, and then that top cap now becomes a standing surface because it's no longer a step ladder. So a lot of this is about having the right piece of equipment. Okay, I think that's probably review. Most of us know where we shouldn't stand on step ladders. What about extension ladders? When we're choosing the right size of an extension ladder, do you know that a 20-foot extension ladder is not 20 feet long? It's 20 feet of material. So 20-foot extension ladders are made out of two 10-foot sections. We have a 10-foot base section that stays on the ground, 10-foot fly section that gets raised and lowered by the rope. 10 plus 10 is 20 feet, but remember those sections are to be used in tandem, so a 20-foot ladder is 17 feet long because there's 3 feet of overlap. And longer ladders are going to overlap a little bit more. When you get into 32 and 40-foot extension ladders, they overlap 4 feet. So remember that. You need to account for that overlap of material, and OSHA requires 3 feet above the upper landing. This is a big one. Make sure that you, your people, your employees, even your family members, that when they set up or choose an extension ladder, 3 feet needs to extend above the upper landing or the roof line so that you can remain in balance and control as you move from the ladder and back onto the ladder. Put a star next to that one. That is actually the #1 cause of OSHA violations on job sites because of ladders. In that category of ladders, that accounts for more than half of why ladders are written up. So that's a big one. Also, just a reminder that when you're choosing the right size, that we don't place ladder, don't stand where you shouldn't. Don't stand on cross members and guardrails, those of you in the warehouse. And if you have your foot on a step ladder and a foot on something else, you're doing something wrong. Also, don't sit or straddle double-sided ladders. Just get the right size. And if a ladder's not tall enough, don't stack ladders on top of other items. Don't place ladders on boxes and barrels or, wait for it, tables in the gym, right? Here's some poor custodian out in, I don't know, where's that? Santaquin? We don't know. I don't know where that picture was taken. Also, ladder sections are not to be tied together. If a ladder isn't tall enough, that doesn't make 2 ladders better. We are not to tie or fasten sections of ladders together. Rope, wire, and if you're not stacking ladders, just a reminder that we don't stack employees either. Okay, again, I don't know who's doing it, but somebody is. Okay, so all part of choosing the right ladder. If it's the right ladder, it's the right material, the correct weight rating, the right style, the right size. Pretty simple. Inspection. Chapter number 2 in ladder safety is inspection. Very important part of ladder safety because here's the trick question. How much does a broken ladder hold? We don't know, right? I don't know, you don't know, your safety professionals, they don't know. How much does a broken ladder hold? So we don't want to guess. We need to assess the ladder's condition. The only way that you're going to find out if something's broken, missing, compromised is by taking a minute, looking the ladder over, and it's called an inspection. How often? OSHA tells us that inspections need to happen before each initial work shift at the beginning of your day or at the beginning of the time that you've pulled that ladder into service. So make sure, this isn't something that you're just being taught. This is an OSHA requirement that we take a minute, look the ladder over, and if you're not familiar, let's introduce you to the NIOSH Safety app. NIOSH is the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. They are essentially the science arm behind OSHA in partnership with OSHA. They have developed a free resource for us, and you go out to where you get your apps. It's a free download, but we would recommend it. In fact, I know some national companies that rely on this. Every employee that they have has this on their device. So just a good resource for everyone as you're onboarding new employees, especially in the month of March or that first week of May as you're doing stand downs and toolbox talks. So let's just go through a quick inspection, shall we? The feet of a ladder. I usually start at the bottom and work my way up since we know it's everybody's responsibility that uses ladders. Look at the feet. The feet of a ladder are like the tires on your car. You would not drive your car with missing tires. You wouldn't drive your truck with bald tires. Why would you ever use a ladder with compromised feet? So the feet need to be present. They also need to be in like new condition. And if they're not, just swap them out. If your ladder has field replaceable feet, You'd actually think that would be more prevalent in the ladder industry. It's not. So Little Giant does that as a safety feature, right? Rotate the tires when that time comes. The side rails, they should be inspected. Now, aluminum is one thing, right? We have aluminum ladders, but what about fiberglass? You ever seen how fiberglass is made? You got a lot going on here. This is our process here in Springville, about 200 yards from where I'm standing, our pultrusion line. So you've got 28 different strands of material getting pulled into a tighter profile, and that's all baked inside a resin or essentially a plastic. So if that side rail isn't sound, if it is broken or split or cracked, that's a good indication that that ladder is not safe. If you can feel the fibers on your fingers, if you want to make that note, if you can run your hand over the side rail and feel the fibers extruding or extended beyond the side rail, if you can feel it, it's a good indication that it's undergone enough stress that it's become broken. Also, fiberglass is susceptible to what's called fiber bloom. You've seen aging fiberglass, where a red ladder or an orange ladder used to be red, right, or faded, that chalky white appearance. Ladders that are stored outdoors, especially on vans and trucks, this is called fiber bloom. And this is where the harsh Utah winters, now this winter isn't a very good example, but you know, in better years, when we have a harsh winter environment or the hot summer sun has deteriorated the resin, to then the fibers come to the surface. And it's not so much that you're going to get slivers in your fingers. The safety concern there, when that ladder develops that fiber bloom, is that those fibers become open now to the elements. And if your ladder is on a van or a truck, and when it rains, those fibers may draw moisture into the side rail, and a waterlogged fiber is not consistently non-conductive. That's the safety concern. That might be some new information for you. So tag those ladders, take those out of service. The rungs, the treads, the steps, any standing surface that has traction or texture to that, make sure those are clean, free from mud, free from anything slippery, solvents in a manufacturing facility, and also free from damage, because eventually a crease becomes a crack. And at some point, that cosmetic damage is going to cross the line and become structural damage. So tag those ladders, show those to a supervisor. Also, the fasteners on ladders, rivets, nuts and bolts, any components are held together by a fastener, even welded together. So make sure that those fasteners are tight. If you notice corrosion, or if you can hold onto the rivet and rotate the head of a rivet with your fingertips, it's not holding on to anything. So make sure that you tag those ladders, take those out of service. Any related components also included the spreader bars, the top caps, rope and pulley systems. Make sure each component is operating the way that it was designed. And just a caution here, as a best practice, if one part of the ladder is broken, missing, or compromised, take that ladder out of service and address that. We're not engineers, and we don't always know what's a weight-bearing surface or what's integral to the safety of that product. So tag those ladders, set them aside. Some things can be maintained, and some just need to be cleaned and lubricated. So again, components need to be addressed. And then the labels. The last part of your inspection includes labels. What you and I refer to as a sticker, OSHA calls safety information. So make sure that that information is not torn or faded. If you can't read that information, it can be cause for a safety violation. So make sure that your labels are legible. And if they're not, then most ladder manufacturers are pretty good about making those available. And then finally, if we have any supervisors, business owners here, as a best practice, when a ladder has finally served its life, destroy a ladder before you throw it away, right? Cut your ladder in half through the aluminum rungs. That's going to be a little bit easier on your saw blades than going through the fiberglass. More importantly, it renders the ladder into unclimbable sections. You don't want to just take a ladder, lay it neatly into a dumpster, because there are people that will jump into dumpsters and take those tools home, and they will use them. And we've heard of cases where people will turn around and sue that company for not locking up their dumpster. It's crazy that we need to tell you that, but there is liability in what's in your trash cans. I mean, you drive up and down the freeway, you've seen the attorneys that are, they're ready. So just a reminder, destroy a ladder, make your intentions very clear before you throw ladders away. Okay, inspection. Essentially what we're doing there is that we're eliminating the ladder as the potential cause of any kind of mishap. That's within your control. Choose the right ladder, make sure it's in good condition. Chapter number 3, this is our setup. And we'll caution about creativity. Creativity is the enemy of safety, isn't it? There is no amount of lumber or other ladders or telephone books that's going to make that a good idea. OSHA tells us that the feet of the ladder need to be on ground that's both stable and level unless that ladder is secured or stabilized. And securing a ladder in place isn't a bungee cord to a rain gutter. When you secure a ladder in place, you can stake the ladder off at the bottom. There are job build solutions. There are accessories that might help you get that done. And then we will also tie the ladder off at the top. This is increasingly important if you're in an industry that requires it. I know roofing companies that do, telecom companies that require that kind of secure in place. But it's also if a ladder is set up for more than 24 hours or if a ladder will be climbed by more than just 2 or 3 individuals. So you might have some best practices or protocol in the company that you work for. So follow all of those safety measures that you've been taught. We also want to make sure that during our setup, the first thing that we're looking for is level ground because it affects a stepladder. If you're off a little bit, your stepladder isn't going to be good. What about an extension ladder? If you're off 1 inch at the bottom, did you know that the top of a 28-foot extension ladder, you're off 19 inches at the top for every 1 inch at the bottom? So the top of your ladder isn't even within the footprint. And if we're off 2 or 3 inches, what do we usually do? Right? We've all been there, done that. We choose a rock, brick, piece of wood, the Jenga pile of whatever you can find. Did you know that OSHA prefers that we dig out the high side? Don't block up the low side. Let me underline that word for you. Don't block up the low side. We'd rather have you dig out the high side, prepare the ground to be firm and level, or if you had the right ladder for the job, there are ladders with built-in levelers. There are outriggers that adjust. Here's the future of extension ladders right here, right? That's the Sumo Stance by Little Giant, or the adjustable safety cage. This product has turned the ladder industry on its head. So safety through design, again, Little Giant leads the industry in that kind of innovation. 230 patents to our name and counting, pretty good for a ladder company, 230 patents. Now we also want to make sure that not only firm level ground and securing in place, let's talk about the angle or the inclination, whether you're using a more traditional extension ladder like the Sumo Stance, maybe you're using a multi-purpose ladder like the King Combo in the extension position. The angle of the ladder also makes a difference in our setup. We don't want to set a ladder up too steep. We don't want to set a ladder up too shallow. This is where most YouTube fails. We've all seen those videos, right? So OSHA wants you to do a math problem here. You know what the math problem is? It's a 4-to-1 ratio. So for every 4 feet that we're going up, the bottom of the ladder should be 1 foot away from the surface that we're leaning the ladder against. If I'm 20 feet in the air, the bottom of the ladder is 5 feet away at the bottom. So it works out to be a 75-degree angle. And a really easy way to calibrate 75 degrees is called the firefighter's rule. Firefighters are taught when they receive their training that the human body is also built at a 4-to-1 ratio. So if you put the toe of your boot at the bottom of a ladder at your shoulder height, you should be able to hold on to the side rail or cover the rung that's at your own shoulder height because your arms are in relation to how tall you are, usually. And then what if they're not? You get it? It's funny. That's a dad joke. It's funny in Indiana, it's funny in Utah, it's funny everywhere. Okay, so make sure that you set your ladder up at the correct angle. Make sure that when you're using extension ladders that all 4 points, remember that you have 2 feet at the bottom and then you have 2 points of contact at the top. Don't use a ladder if it's not connected or contact at those 4 points. Also your step ladders, make sure that your step ladders have 4 points. All 4 feet should be making contact with the ground. That's part of your setup. If you're using a step ladder, pull that spreader bar nice and tight. If you're using a combination ladder that has a hinge system in it, make sure that you pull that section nice and tight for you, and that takes the tolerance of that hinge and it tightens everything up. That's part of your setup. What if your ladder was smart enough to tell you? What if your extension ladder could tell you that it was set up at the right angle? Wouldn't that make sense? Safety through the design, one more indication that your ladder was set up correctly. And then there's some variables that change depending on the industry that you're working in, depending on the job site, in fact, depending on the season. Let's talk about 3 different variables that I think are important. Number 1, overhead obstructions. We need to have environmental awareness. Is there a door jamb over our head? Is there an archway? Is there machinery? Is there a conveyor or a belt? Is there overhead power? Did you know that 3 out of every 4 electrical fatalities are because a ladder came in contact with overhead power? That is a crazy statistic. 3 out of every 4 electrical fatalities, according to the CDC, because a ladder came in contact with overhead power. So be aware of your surroundings. Also the weather. Weather may change depending on the season, especially in Utah, right? You might get all 4 seasons on one day. Starts out winter, turns into summer, you know, we've all been there. So make sure that we account for the weather. There are days where the wind is too strong. If you live in Spanish Fork, if you live out in Daybreak, you know what the wind feels like. So make sure that you account for days where the wind is too strong. Maybe there's rain and hail, and so it wouldn't be safe to be on a ladder that day. And then also traffic, foot traffic, vehicle traffic. And again, this is completely situational, but you might be in an industry or work at a school district or at an airport where there might be foot or vehicle traffic. So take precautions there, maybe a cone, maybe some caution tape to isolate your work area. We want to be visible, right? Visibility is safety, and that's why Little Giant has adopted this shade of green, similar to PPE. Do you wonder why safety vests are high-vis green? Because it's right in the middle of the human eye spectrum. So you didn't know you were getting an anatomy class today, but this is the spectrum of your eyeball. We actually perceive high-vis green easier, faster, safer than any other color. In fact, in some countries, their ambulances and their fire departments have adopted that shade for their vehicles. Kind of interesting. Easily perceived. We want you to be visible. And then let's talk about transportation. We often think of people falling from ladders as an injury. Did you know that the #1 cause of lost time injury or insurance claim is that people carry ladders the wrong way? So it leads to strain and sprain injuries as we're wrestling longer or heavier pieces of equipment on and off of vans, on and off of trucks. So think of your lower back, think of your shoulders, rotator cuff, etc. And OSHA puts all of these injuries in a category they call overexertion. #1 cause, by far, the #1 cause of lost time injury or insurance claim that has to do with ladders. So take some precautions. Know your area. A lot of ladders that we carry are larger than we are. So make sure that you're aware of your surroundings. Maybe open the door. If you're working outdoors, open the gate. I know some companies that require their people to make a pre-trip assessment. Open the gate, find any divots in the grass. You want to be aware of those before you have a ladder on your shoulder. Lift with your legs, not your back. Carry ladders with intention. Now you could carry lighter equipment when lighter equipment's available. And Little Giant makes some of the lightest extension ladders in the world. Carry ladders with 2 hands when 2 hands are available below your waist at your belt buckle. And you could carry ladders with 2 people. At some point, it would be safer for you to carry with 2 people. And then I'm a fan of putting a ladder on my shoulder at 35 pounds or more. And of course, outdoors, not indoors. But when I'm outdoors and I have some overhead room, I will hike a ladder on my shoulder because, take for example, this gentleman, if he should stumble over that curb, it would probably be a safer alternative for him to drop that ladder to the ground and buy a new ladder and not a new back, right? Then you're not pulled into an accident. If it's on your shoulder, that might be a quicker way to do that. It doesn't happen very often, but it does. So transportation, carrying ladders. Chapter number 4 is climbing. And climbing ladders, we'll share some sobering statistics with you today in America. Did you know that 2,000 people will have some form of incident or accident because of a ladder? On average, 100 of those Americans will have some permanent or temporary disability, and there will be a fatality today. And then it happens again tomorrow. And that is a daughter, that is a son, that is a coworker, right? That is a friend. So if you listen to one thing, if you only get one thing out of today's training, when you're climbing, when you're positioning, when you're working from a ladder, never, ever overreach. This is the common thread that runs through most of the life-changing injuries. Usually begin here by getting outside of the footprint. So the bare minimum is to keep your belt buckle between the side rails. If you want to be extra vigilant, you'll keep your shoulders between the side rails. And this is your work. From your fingertips to your fingertips, that's your work and nothing more. If you can't reach the work, what's the solution? You come down, move the ladder, and you climb back up. And how long does that take? 60 seconds, 90 seconds. Let's say it took you 5 minutes out of your way. Come down, move the ladder, and climb back up. We've all heard some very sad stories, right? Well, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've heard the apprentice that was on the job for 3 months, guy that was just a few weeks away from retirement. He knew better. Come down, move the ladder, climb back up. Now, it's one thing during a safety class to say, yeah, I'll make that decision. But when you're in the privacy of your own garage, and there's just that one last thing, and the grill's going in the backyard, we make those shortcuts, especially at home. So just a reminder, I can't hit that one hard enough. Never overreach. 3 points of contact. Let's talk about that. We hear a lot about 3 points of contact. OSHA says at least one hand be in contact with the ladder when you're climbing up and down. The last 5 words, very instructive when climbing up and down. So 1 hand and 2 feet, or 2 hands and 1 foot to remain in contact when we're moving while on the ladder. But OSHA also understands that you and we're climbing ladders to get something done. Getting something done might require some tools, might require our hands, so tools need to be in your tool belt, or you place them on the top cap. Nothing should be in your hands. Take your time, keep your balance forward, maintain 3 points of contact. What I want to illustrate here is that once you get to your final working position and you're not climbing any higher, 3 points of contact is actually considered a best practice. Highly recommended, both boots and good footwear. Even at home, don't be climbing ladders, trimming trees on flip-flops Saturday afternoon, right? Tell your cousins that one. Also, your good footwear, maybe the sides of your boots. I will let you decide if that can be considered contact number 3. Could that be considered contact number 4? My left knee, my right thigh. I'm touching the ladder in 6 different places so that I can pull the tools from my tool belt or the top cap and actually do the work that often takes 2 hands. So 3 points of contact, it's black and white. It's required while you're climbing, but it's a best practice while you're working. And then I have a friend, he maintains 3 points of contact whether he wants to or not. That's 3 points of contact. Okay. That means that other tools that don't fit in your tool belt, they need to come up another way. And there are totes, there are lanyards and hoists that might be appropriate. Just make sure that they're not overloaded and that they are compatible with the equipment that you're using. Okay, same rules apply. On the way down, 3 points of contact is required. The difference when I'm climbing down, situational awareness, where is that bottom rung? Have you ever missed the bottom rung on a ladder? Happens all the time. Second leading cause of ladder injury. 20% of all reportable injury that happens on ladders is that people miss that bottom step. If you're on an 8-foot ladder, actually a 6-foot ladder before lunch, an 8-foot ladder after lunch, right? It's really easy to step off a little bit early, 1 rung, rolled ankle, knee injury. We've heard of worse, but be aware of your surroundings, know where that bottom rung is. And what if a company invented a ground cue? If that bottom rung sounded different or felt different or both, wouldn't that make sense? So we have that awareness, and we know by the design of the product where that bottom rung is, and then the next step is safely to the floor or to the ground. And then just some reminders here as we close that we don't shift or move our weight. You already know this one. Ladders are not to be walked around. We don't shift or extend ladders when an employee is on it. Now, it will keep your boots dry. When you are downtown Salt Lake, the sewer's back up, right? That spring runoff has to go somewhere. And we notice that he's wearing a mask, so he's safe, right? He's wearing a mask, so he's safe from the virus, but he's walking a ladder across a busy street. Yeah, silly. Choices that we make. Also, don't take items that don't belong. Some things are heavy. Some things might just make you lose your balance. Those items really shouldn't be on a ladder with you. How many things are going wrong here? It goes south pretty quick. We don't show you this entire video, but you can see it goes south. So don't take items that don't belong. This includes those big Costco totes that you're shoving up into your attic, right? Don't take heavy items on a ladder. Also, it's required that we face the ladder when we're climbing both up and down. You likely already know this, but look at the last 5 words, very similar to 3 points of contact. It's required that we face the ladder when we're climbing. It is a best practice to face the ladder while we're doing the work. That's the reason that the King Combo here has back legs that are 14 inches wide. Think that through. If you're an electrician, if you're HVAC, if you're mechanical, right? This would allow you to face the ladder and face the work. And if you're in industry between boiler and the wall, maybe you're between machinery, that would be a way to face the ladder and face the work again through the design. Smart. So in review, in your notes, you should write down choose the right ladder for the job. Make sure it's the right size, the right material, the correct weight rating, the right style. Also inspection, that is required. That's not something that you ever outgrow. Good idea to look a ladder over at home as well. Also that we set ladders up in a safe environment, set ladders up correctly, and that you climb ladders as if they were fall protection or the fall prevention that they really are. Okay. In professional environments, just a reminder that in professional environments, this stuff is pretty easy. Those statistics really happen when we're at home. Some happen at work, especially for those that are self-employed or run small crews. Just a reminder, be safe for your employer because they demand it, but be safe at home because your family deserves it, right? You want to be safe there too. That's it. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat and make sure that you ask those questions. I'll ask a live audience. Is there any gray area? Is there anything that you'd like to know about ladders while we're here? When we found out those statistics, when we've been members of the ALI for a number of years, and when we found out that in the industry that 2,000 Americans are injured and 100 of them are permanently or temporarily, and then there's a fatality, our CEO, if he was here, would say that we were ashamed to be part of an industry that found that acceptable. That if you look around, you can go to a hardware store, and I won't mention any names, but a lot of ladders, if you look at a step ladder that's sold at a hardware store, it's really no different than a step ladder that your parents used 40 years ago or your grandparents used 100 years ago. The example that we often make is like playground equipment or the cars that we drive. That industry has really created safer equipment. I mean, can you imagine if this was at a school district? If this was in your city, right? Do you think every concerned parent would be marching down on City Hall, right? That stuff's not acceptable anymore. So we had this wake-up call that said those kind of old school thinking just wasn't acceptable. So we looked at the 4 major reasons that people are injured. Number 1, we addressed it, was the weight, right? That's the number 1 cause. So you make lighter equipment. The number 2 cause of injury, missing the bottom rung, so things like the ground cue. Number 3 has to do with the levelness of the ground. So we've done that. And that's also tied to overreaching. You can get away with a little bit of overreaching if the ground is flat, but you could be on the same piece of equipment if you're off by a little bit of unlevel ground. Then you get in trouble. So levelness and overreaching was a big deal. And then often choosing the wrong rung to stand on, that gets people in trouble. So having multi-purpose ladders, like on a step ladder, we wouldn't stand on the top rung, but having this kind of innovation like the King Combo, then you have the right rung or the right kind of ladder for the job. So those are really the 4 big things, and we continue to innovate. In fact, I think that we'll probably, I think we have like 3 or 4 patents just in process right now. Innovation just keeps on going, and we could take some time and show you more. But yeah, we're going a long way, right? Even safety cages. I'll let Paxton kind of run some of that stuff. But products like guardrails, because of the tie-off rule, there are certain industries that require their people to harness and tie off. The solution would be to put a 42-inch guardrail with a midspan and a toe kick. So essentially, you've taken fall protection and married it with a fiberglass base. So it's convenient like a ladder. That product actually folds up, so it's convenient like a ladder. 6 inches wide, has tip and glide wheels, so it'll go where a scissor lift can't go. But then when you get to where you're working, it feels like you're in 42 inches plus or minus with your midspan and your toe kick. It feels like you're on a scissor lift, but at 65 pounds, it'll go places where your scissor lift can't go. And we also make that in multiple sizes. That's been a huge product for us, especially in specific industries that require that kind of tie-off. And then we also make an adjustable version of that can also be adjusted in height. When we go to the other studio, you'll be able to see that one in there. And then that also adjusts so that you can work on stairs, loading docks, again, places that a scissor lift can't go. So it's not just an element of safety. I know today we're talking about safety, but for a business, they can justify this kind of product because it also leads to productivity. Because sometimes we weigh those initiatives against each other, right? People, they make a choice. Do I trade in some speed so my guys can be safer, or do I trade in some safety so my guys can be faster? And these products really help us be both. Really cool stuff. So long answer to a short question, but yeah, that's innovation has come because of the demand, the need, and people have noticed. reading me a question right here. How do you expect, yeah, go ahead. I don't know if you can bring it up or not. How do you communicate safety expectations for team members? That's a good question. How do you communicate the culture of safety to team members? I think that it becomes a culture. It becomes start with a conversation, just like the relationship that you have with your family. It starts with a conversation. So maybe you stand down for a moment. And when you stand down, that just means that you stop work for 10, 15 minutes at the beginning or the middle of a day, and you just set some expectations, and you just make it black and white that we expect you to maintain 3 points of contact. We expect you to not overreach, and if we see you overreach, we'll kindly remind you the first time, and we'll kindly remind you the second time. But when it gets to 3 or 4 times, we might need to have a deeper conversation. So I think that starts with small conversations. It leads to product training. It leads to having alignment with partners that can help you with that kind of training. And we know that you do have assets through the community. Certainly the Utah Safety Council has those relationships. So make sure that you reach out to the Safety Council, and they can introduce you to those kind of partners, including Little Giant, that can maybe step in and help you train your people on being safe. So start with the conversation and turn that into training. Again, I don't know. Hopefully that answers part of your question. Go ahead, Paxton. Paxton's back. In fact, Paxton, go ahead and show your camera just so they know who's talking in my ear. So Paxton's reading your questions, and so yeah, please, if you'll open your mic and actually read that to me, that would help.
Okay, what are some specific maintenance practices that can help extend a ladder's lifespan?
Good question. So what are some maintenance practices that help the longevity of a ladder? What can we do maybe proactively to make our ladders last longer? If you can store ladders indoors, that would be a benefit. Ladders that are stored indoors are away from the hot summer sun and the winter weather. That's one thing. Little Giant actually puts some of those UV inhibitors into our fiberglass, into the resins. So we find that our products last longer because of that manufacturing process. Make really unique resins and glass for that reason. So if you can store ladders indoors, if you have smaller pieces of equipment, Pax, if you want to run the Conquest real quick, this is a fantastic product. It is fiberglass. But because it stores in a 4'7" package, it will fit inside a vehicle where maybe a bigger A-frame or a bigger piece of equipment might need to sit outside on a van or on a truck. So this will be small enough that it will fit inside your vehicle, and it's easier to carry, so fewer strain and sprains that way. So again, sometimes it's just choosing the right piece of equipment that might store smaller. Maintenance, I would also remind your people to be kind to their ladders. A lot of that damage in the B-roll that Paxton was showing us is because ladders often get abused. They often get thrown around. When you and your buddies are down at the fairgrounds on a Friday night, undisclosed hobbies that you might have. So make sure that, professional wrestling when they're ladders, yeah. So make sure that you are treating your ladders with care. This isn't something that you want to, now this is an extreme case. This is just kind of funny to make you smile, but it is true that if you're using a ladder at a business that you didn't pay for that tool, it's really easy to, just throw your stuff around. And that's where that damage, that kind of impact that happens to side rails and rungs. So I would just remind your employees and your force to take care of your tools, and your tools will take care of you. That leads to the longevity of your tools. Also, just keep up on your maintenance and lubrication. Make sure that moving parts are lubricated, and that you keep up on the fasteners, because once something becomes loose, then it kind of it's kind of a downhill trajectory. Any other questions, Paxton? Quickly. Okay, fantastic. Okay, Karen, do you have a microphone? And then one more question here, please. Yeah.
So do you know the OSHA requirements on storing ladders in your facility?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answers to that. Yeah, storing ladders in your facility. Do you know?
Yeah, actually, I do.
Yeah, please. Do you want to share that with us? Storing ladders in a facility.
In your company, you're supposed to actually have a designated area for your ladders, and they need to be locked up, somehow secured in that designated area.
Good.
So that's what OSHA just did when I had a compliance come in and do a walkthrough. I did not know that either.
Yeah, that's really good to know. So keep your ladders in a dedicated area, secured. Quite often, if they're in a tool crib or in the shop, you might have to check those out. But yeah, keep your ladders in a secured area. That way, they're not just kind of, haphazard around the facility. But thank you very much. Any other further questions, or if you found this information valuable, and if you would like this kind of safety training for you, for your staff, or for your company, just reach out to us here at Little Giant. This is a free service that Little Giant offers, and we'll do this through a Teams meeting. You don't need to come down to Springville, but you can just put us up on a big screen there in your facility. And if you have speakers, we can just do this like we've done today, and we'll offer a certificate for those that go through this course. Free value add that Little Giant does, putting our money where our mouth is. We want to prevent injuries and save lives, not just through the products that we make, but also through this education platform that we've created. So thank you. Thanks to the Utah Safety Council, and we'll see you soon. Karen.
Hey, we want to take this time to thank Kenyon for sharing your knowledge and passion for ladder safety with us today. And a huge, huge thank you to Little Giant Ladder Systems for your hospitality and for hosting us at your incredible studio. It's been an honor to see firsthand the modernization and dedication behind your work, Kenyon. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to give you a quick preview of our next month's Start With Safety in April. It'll be on April 1st, where we will be focusing on navigating Utah's 100 deadliest days on the road. And this is another critical topic in preventing injuries and saving lives. We hope you'll join us there again, April 1st. Mark your calendars. And without further ado, until then, please stay connected with us. This is all our QR codes with Women in Safety and all the programs that we offer. Please stay connected with us, www.utahsafetycouncil.org. Until then, stay safe, everyone, and see you next time.